Thank you to our Digital Transformation Forum sponsor, Xledger.
Hi, my name is Rosalie Tenge. I am partner and channel manager at Xledger, and Xledger is a true cloud mid-market accountancy software provider. Today's speakers have been talking to you about different ways that digital transformation can impact your business, whether it's from technological advancements such as live reporting, or giving you tips and insights on how you can identify whether or not your client is ready to take the next step. If you have not had a chance to listen to our session X to Excel, I would recommend you do so when it becomes available to you, because we are giving you quite some interesting insights. This session is not about identifying digital transformation or about the outcomes of a transformation, but it's actually about everything in between. So if you have identified clients' needs for transformation, what is your first step? What do you do, and how do you make sure that ultimately your client is happy, successful, and of course transformed? And that's what we're presenting to you today. And we're doing that by handing you a framework. And if you look at the framework, there's quite a few steps in it to discuss. Now, I don't have enough time to go through through everything in detail because we have 15 minutes, but I will talk about every single pillar and why those are important to you. If you would like to have a copy of this framework, or indeed would like to have more information, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment box or send me an email, and I'm more than happy to share this content with you and also plan some time with you to discuss it, how you can apply this to your business. Now, if you look at the framework, on the left hand, you see identifying trigger points. And this is your starting point. So you have seen clients that would potentially be interested or would potentially be good to have financial transformation. And on the other hand, all the way on the right, you see transformation. So that's your end goal. That's where you want your clients to be. And everything in the middle is that framework that you can use. Now, if you look at it, you see in the dark blue, you see advisory services. And that is your opportunity to provide additional services to your client, and as well as potentially create additional revenue. And the question that we get regularly asked is, yes, that's all fine, but is my client actually waiting for me to tell them what to do? And I can wholeheartedly say that the answer is yes. Their client is really looking for somebody to help them. And the reason why is because, first of all, you are a pair of fresh eyes. So you are an independent source that they trust. But you're an outsider that could have a different view on their business and give them new insights that they haven't thought about. Most of the time, your clients will be emotionally invested in the way that they work, or maybe in their business as a whole, because it's theirs. And they don't actually see how they could improve their processes as much as you could, looking at it from a higher level view. Secondly, the transformation is often much more than just buying a system. It's not simply replacing system A with system B, but in fact, it's actually a changing of the way of their thinking, of their processes, of their workflows. And often your client wouldn't see that. On the things, oh, I need a new system and that's it. And you have to help them see that they have to change their way of working or way of thinking. And if you have actually clients that do understand that, it can be very daunting because they are comfortable with what they've been doing. And now all of a sudden you're saying that they need to change. So having somebody that tells them you do need to change, but at the same time, it's okay to do that, and I'm here to help you, really comforts your client and ultimately also help them to create a successful transformation. And lastly, people really don't do this often. Changing a financial system is often done because you must change your system, not because it's a fun thing to do that people are looking forward to. So people don't do it often, they're reluctant to do it, and they don't have the experience of doing it. Where you, as a service provider, will have had other clients who have gone through the same process. So you can really help them, give your expertise, explain to them what are best practices, and also show them what pitfalls to avoid. So you can really help your clients, take them along this journey in transformation, and that's where you can offer your services as advisors. So if we look at the framework steps, there are 5 steps to go through. There is discuss and align, there is plan, there is analyze, there is implementing and designing, and then there is go live and follow up. So looking at the first one, being discussing and aligning, you have identified trigger points, and now you have to challenge that viewpoint, not just with yourself, but more with your client. You can go to your client and say, is it just me, or are you experiencing XYZ that could be improved? Or is it just me, or wouldn't you benefit from doing something in ABC instead of DEF, for example? It's just bringing them, making them aware of things that could be different. Now you could get the response saying, oh yeah, I've been thinking about this, but I don't know where to start. Or you could get the response saying, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But which is also fine, because then you can plant the seed and the client will think about it and will come back to you when they actually realize that what you're saying is does stand up. But if you have a client that is ready to move forward, you start identifying stakeholders. And this is where you talk to everybody in the business. So from the finance department and the CFO, all the way to the end users that are only doing expenses or timesheets, for example. But make sure you talk to everybody, because everybody will have different opinions, different requirements, and different ideas about what would be good to have in a new system. And also make sure that you get everybody in the same room, because you can talk to people individually, but the moment you set them all in the same room and they start talking amongst themselves, they start coming up with new ideas and new reasons why they should go through this transformation. And it really creates a buzz that is needed to make a transformation successful. And you'll see that whilst you're doing this, you start to understand what goals there are and what objectives are common within the business. You don't have to lock them down yet, that comes in the planning phase, but you'll naturally see goals and objectives coming up whilst you talk to them. And most importantly, before you end this phase, you need to make sure that everybody's aligned. So is everybody on the same page whilst before you start going through the transformation? And with that, I mean, not necessarily people having different opinions on how to go through the transformation, but are they all okay with doing this transformation? Because the last thing you need throughout every step of this process is a blocking party that doesn't want to do this in the first place, because that will really limit your success and the ultimate outcome. So once you've done all that, you've discussed, you've aligned everybody, you can start planning. And in planning, you really just start to lock down those goals and those objectives. And here it's very important that you look at the what and not so much the how you're going to get there. So you look at the outcomes. What do we want to achieve? Where do you want to be? And not how you want to get there, because there's always going to be multiple ways to get from point A to point B that people have thought of, but also ways that nobody has thought of, but might be very effective and bring you all sorts of insights. In this whole planning phase, there's obviously lots of stuff that you need to plan, but for the sake of time, I want to highlight 2, which is, first of all, make sure that you set timelines. Set a deadline, saying, okay, we want to go through this transformation and we want to get it done by a certain time. And we want to hit these particular milestones to get there. By setting timelines, you immediately create you liven the transformation, you make it more tangible, and everybody can work towards something. And the same counts for responsibilities. If you are the one that brought it into the organization, you might feel that you're responsible for making this whole transformation become a success. But it's very important that you make sure that within the client's organization, there are multiple people that also bear some responsibility, because the moment they have responsibilities, they will work harder and they will want to make sure that their bit is successful and their bit is done. So it really helps carry this project and carry the success of the project as a whole. Now, once you've gone through that, you start analyzing. And analyzing is really all about vendor selection. So you'll be inviting vendors along, you'll be talking to different vendors together with your client. And this is potentially also where your client looks at you the most and where you could really leverage your expertise and your experiences. Where do you see vendors that have requirements that the client actually expressed are very important? And what kind of insights do you have about the market, for example, which you can really leverage to your client? And in this analyzing phase, there's also responsibility for you to make sure that your clients are going to be open-minded and flexible. There will be stakeholders in your client organization that have preference for certain vendors because of whatever reason. But it's important that they're open-minded to think about all the vendors and listen openly to them and their suggestions, because it might well be that the vendor that they are selecting is not necessarily the vendor that's best for them if they don't keep an open mind. Once selected, you start designing and implementing. Now, designing is often really done with the vendor itself because the vendor can give you the solution best practices. But implementation can be done can also be done by yourself, that you can offer as a service to your clients. Ultimately, before you go live with a solution, whether it's implemented by yourself or by the vendor, make sure that it's very well tested and adjusted if necessary. And the reason why it's very important to do that before you actually go live is because when you go live, there will be users there that you haven't talked to since the very beginning, since the discussion phase, that are going to use it. So they'll have expectations, and you have to make sure that you can meet those expectations. And I've written in the slide, invest time equals success. And that's very important because often when we go through a transformation, you see that, okay, we're hitting the go live date. We've gone through the transformation, project is finished, everybody's happy, and that's it. But spending time after going live is absolutely important to make sure that it's successful. Because what is success? Success is that everybody can use the new system, is happy to use the new system, and is able to give you the honest feedback that they have on the system. But there can also be continuous development. So make sure that you and your client both understand that if you go live, there might be things coming up that you haven't thought of when you planned it 5 months ago, for example. And that's absolutely okay, because the transformation is a process, but also the requirements can change. And so it's just important that while you're going live and doing the follow-up, you look out for trigger points. And I know I'm using trigger points. That doesn't mean that necessarily you have to go through an entire new transformation once you have identified enough trigger points, but it's more a way of you keeping an eye out on what's happening with your clients. And if we look at the entire framework, so we've looked at all the 5 different steps, there are things that are overarching on all different points. So there's loads of them, and I, again, because of the time, I've identified 2 that I just want to mention. Stakeholder management. It might sound obvious, but stakeholder management is super important to make sure that you go through that, or you manage those with every single step. Make sure that you have your stakeholders with you when you're planning everything. Are they aligned with you when you're analyzing? Are they bought into the design and bought into the implementation? And ultimately, are they going to be your ambassadors within the organization once it goes live? And this all comes down to that very, very first aligning phase, that you don't want blockers. If you have a stakeholder that's a blocker, they're not going to be the ambassador when it goes live. So make sure that you manage those people very well. Another one, and a slightly different one, is training. Training is really training the end user of using the solution that you've selected, and also training them into the new workflows and processes. People think of this, oh yeah, that'll end. We'll do that when we get there at the go live stage. But it's important to plan for this all the way at the aligning and discussing phase. Make sure that you take this into the discussion. How are we going to make sure our end users are going to use it? How are we going to make sure that everybody is getting the utmost out of what we want to achieve? So it's very important to take training in every single phase that you go through. So this is the framework. This is the information that I want to share with you today. Again, there is quite a lot of additional information there, which I'm more than happy to share with you. I hope that the insights that I give you so you can leverage your expertise and you can provide additional services to your clients, and hopefully also create some additional revenue streams for your business. If you would like the framework, you want a copy of the framework, or if you would like to have more information, more than happy to share this with you. More than happy to have a chat with you. For now, I would like to thank you very much and have a great day.